Raider Nation, it's time to face a harsh reality. The Las Vegas Raiders just suffered a crushing 41-24 loss to Washington. The frustrations are boiling over. Fans are angry, players look defeated, and the spotlight is now burning hot on one man who might be dragging this team down, the offensive line coach and run game coordinator, Brennan Carroll. Raider Nation has been through ups and downs, but what we're seeing right now could go down as one of the most disappointing stretches in recent history if changes aren't made fast. The numbers speak for themselves. Against Washington, the offensive line gave up 28 pressures, 15 hurries, 5 unblocked pressures, and 5 sacks. That's not just bad, it's historically bad. The run game is collapsing too, averaging a miserable 3.1 yards per carry, which ranks 30th in the league. At this pace, the Raiders are on track to allow 68 sacks, a total that would be the worst in franchise history. That kind of failure doesn't just happen by accident. It's a sign of poor coaching, poor management, and a lack of leadership in the trenches. And for Brennan Carroll, this spotlight is not going away. Carroll was brought in as both offensive line coach and run game coordinator, but his hiring was controversial from the start. Many called it nepotism, pointing out that he's the son of Pete Carroll and questioning if he truly earned the position. His resume certainly doesn't silence critics, because he's never been the architect of a dominant offensive line. What Raider Nation sees instead is a coach who mismanages players, puts them out of position, and stunts their development. Jackson Powers Johnson, a top draft pick, is being benched instead of playing at center, where he belongs. Meredith has been forced into the wrong position. And across the board, players who once showed promise are now regressing. Backhand index pointing. Right before we dive deeper into the latest NFL updates, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the bell icon so you never miss breaking news. Now, let's continue. What's most concerning is the lack of communication between Carroll and offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. When the game plan is falling apart, Carroll still insists on calling the same predictable runs up the middle, even when the defense is stacked to shut it down. There's no creativity, no adjustment, and no accountability. And when linemen are visibly struggling, instead of helping them improve, Carroll seems to make things worse. It's a recipe for disaster, and Raider Nation knows it. So what's the solution? Many believe it's time to fire Brennan Carroll from his current role and reassign him as an assistant coach. Veteran coach Joe Philbin is already on staff and has the experience to step in as offensive line coach immediately. Starting JPJ at center, moving players back to their natural positions, and letting the line gel under stronger leadership could give this offense a fighting chance. Now, don't get it twisted, the season is not over yet. The Raiders are sitting at 1-2, but the AFC West is wide open. The Chiefs and Raiders are tied, the Broncos are struggling, and only the Chargers have momentum at 3-0. If the offensive line can be fixed, Geno Smith has enough weapons and this team has enough grit to bounce back. Raider Nation deserves better, and the fix is right in front of us. But it has to happen now. This is the turning point, and all eyes are on Brennan Carroll. Will the Raiders make the move that saves their season, or will they let this disaster drag on? Raider Nation, stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Raider Nation, let's talk about the biggest problem holding this team back right now, offensive line coach and run game coordinator, Brennan Carroll. After 3 weeks of football, the numbers are alarming, the performances are collapsing, and the questions surrounding Carroll's leadership are growing louder with each passing game. Let's start with the on-field results, because they're nothing short of disastrous. This offensive line isn't just struggling, it's historically bad. Against Washington, the line gave up an avalanche of pressures and sacks, leaving Geno Smith running for his life. The pocket collapses almost instantly, and the run game is nearly non-existent. Averaging just 3.1 yards per carry, the Raiders sit near the very bottom of the league in rushing production. That's not the standard Raider Nation expects, and it's certainly not the standard of a playoff-caliber football team. And then there's the uncomfortable truth that many fans have been pointing out since day one: Brennan Carroll didn't earn this position, he inherited it. He was hired largely because of family ties as the son of legendary coach Pete Carroll. While that name carries weight, the resume behind it does not. Carroll has never built or led a dominant offensive line unit in his career. Yet here he is, handed responsibility for a Raiders front that is now crumbling in front of our eyes. For a franchise built on toughness in the trenches, that's unacceptable. It doesn't stop there. Carroll's mismanagement of the very players he's supposed to develop is costing this team dearly. Jackson Powers-Johnson, a highly touted draft pick with massive potential, has been inexplicably sidelined instead of being given the chance to solidify the center position. Meanwhile, players like Meredith have been forced into roles and positions where they don't belong, leading to mistakes and breakdowns that ripple through the entire offense. Raider Nation can see it. The talent is there, but it's being wasted. Even more troubling is the breakdown in communication between Carroll and offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. In today's NFL, coaching staffs succeed when they work as a unit, making real-time adjustments and keeping defenses guessing. But instead of collaboration, what fans are witnessing is confusion. Carroll sticks with predictable play calls, inside runs into stacked boxes, repetitive schemes that fail again and again. There's no creativity, no adaptation, and no sign of progress. And finally, the regression. Players who looked promising just a year ago now look worse. Parm, Meredith, JPJ, Glaze, the list goes on. Instead of developing linemen into stronger, smarter players, this staff is watching them slide backward. Draft picks aren't seeing the field. Depth pieces aren't improving. The offensive line, once a proud backbone of Raider football, has become its biggest liability. This is why the criticism of Brennan Carroll isn't just noise, it's a legitimate, growing concern. Raider Nation is tired of excuses. They see a line that's falling apart, a coach who seems out of his depth, and a unit that looks worse every single week. If the Raiders are serious about saving their season, they can't afford to ignore this problem any longer. Raider Nation, if the offensive line is the biggest problem dragging this team down, then it's time to talk about the solutions. Because the truth is, the fix isn't complicated, it's right there in front of us. But it requires bold leadership and tough decisions that the organization can't afford to delay any longer. The first step is simple: Brennan Carroll needs to be removed from his current role as offensive line coach and run game coordinator. That doesn't mean he has to be thrown out of the building entirely, but it does mean stripping him of the responsibilities he clearly hasn't been able to handle. Shifting Carroll into an assistant role keeps him around in a lesser capacity, where he can learn and contribute without the burden of leading the trenches. Raider Nation has seen enough to know this experiment isn't working. And continuing to force it is only going to sink the season further. So who steps up to fill that crucial role? The answer is already on the staff: veteran coach Joe Philbin. He has the experience, the track record, and the credibility that this offensive line desperately needs. Philbin has coached in the league for decades, and unlike Carroll, he's proven his ability to organize, motivate, and stabilize offensive fronts. Bringing him in as the primary offensive line coach immediately would send the right message, that mediocrity is no longer acceptable, and that the Raiders are serious about getting this right. But coaching changes alone aren't enough. The personnel decisions on the field need to match the urgency. And that starts with Jackson Powers-Johnson. Raider Nation knows it. Analysts know it. Everyone can see it: JPJ should be starting at center. He's strong, he's smart, and he was drafted for this exact role. Yet week after week, he's been benched or misused while the line collapses around him. Putting JPJ in at center solidifies the heart of the line, gives Geno Smith a reliable anchor, and allows the rest of the group to settle into their natural positions. With Philbin guiding the unit and JPJ stepping into his rightful spot, the Raiders can finally begin to build a stronger, more cohesive lineup. Meredith, Glaze, and Parm can focus on doing what they do best, instead of scrambling to cover holes caused by poor coaching decisions. A realignment like this doesn't just improve protection and run blocking, it gives the offense confidence. It allows Geno Smith to trust his line, it gives the play calling more flexibility, and it restores the physical identity that Raider football is supposed to represent. These are not impossible fixes. They don't require blockbuster trades or massive overhauls. They require leadership, accountability, and the willingness to admit when something isn't working. Raider Nation deserves to see their team fighting with everything they've got, not stumbling because of preventable mistakes on the offensive line. The solutions are right there. Demote Carroll. Promote Philbin. Start JPJ. Do it now, and give this team a chance to fight its way back into contention. Raider Nation, let's keep one thing clear, the season is not over. Yes, the Raiders sit at 1-2, and yes, frustration is at an all-time high. But the AFC West is still wide open. The Chiefs don't look unbeatable, the Broncos are struggling, and even with the Chargers off to a hot start, there's plenty of football left to play. The key is simple, fix the offensive line, and this team has a real chance to rebound. Geno Smith is still a capable quarterback, the weapons around him are strong, and the defense has shown flashes of what it can be. What's holding the Raiders back isn't talent, it's execution in the trenches. If the coaching staff makes the right adjustments, gets the line back on track, and gives Geno the time he needs, this team can still turn it around. Raider Nation knows the fight isn't over, and the season is far from lost. Raider Nation, this is the moment to stand together. The frustration is real, the problems are obvious, but unity has always been the strength of this fanbase. Stronger together isn't just a slogan, it's the spirit that defines the silver and black. If the Raiders are going to turn this season around, the push for change has to be loud and clear. The offensive line can't keep holding this team back, and the coaching decisions can't go unchecked. Fans, media, and players alike must demand accountability. Stay united, keep the pressure on, and keep the faith. Because with the right changes, this team still has the fight to rise again. Raider Nation has never backed down before, and now is not the time to start.